Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going over all the god tier farming spots to help you get energy activators and catalysts for free while also netting you a ridiculous amount of golden Kuiper shards. You're going to need a ton of all of these different resources to help power fantasy scale your character into one-shotting bosses and just doing all the cool stuff you've been seeing. So this is just going to be a ton of multi-level farms that give you long-term value for your account, because I always think it's way better to farm like this than it is to go for individual things. So that's what we've min-maxed for everything we'll be grinding for today. I also tested all of these spots live, and this is more of a streamlined version of those 12-ish hours. And sorry this took so long. I was just busy and had to retest everything after the hot fix. I've also updated the Ultimate First Descendant guide with all the best locations to do all this stuff at, so both of those are linked down below if you need them, and all images referenced in the video are already inside of here. You can either click at the top over here to get exactly where you need to be, or you can Control F and it is what it is. So like usual, all my stuff was updated in my Discord first, so make sure you join to keep up to date with what I'm doing. It's where I post all my builds, all my guides, and pretty much everything first. For now, though, we're going to light this off with the prerequisites we need to make sure we can do every single thing that we need to and get the most value out of our account and save the most time. And it's important to take the time to get these two characters because they open up 99% of the game materials for you. So your grind will start with Sharen. She has a 20% chance to drop all of her parts from these 4 dungeons. So just run it down until you get her. It's just a 16-hour craft, and she's the first character you should always go for and get. The main reason you need her is because she's the only stealth character in the game, and all of these outposts have a bonus for deactivating all of the terminals instead of blowing them up. So you get a chance at rolling both of the amorphous materials, and in a lot of cases, the stealth one has everything that you want in it. And unfortunately, some of the bosses are literal nightmares on hard mode, so just be careful for that. But if you do run into one that's like ridiculous, just die and respawn and just keep blowing them out. Like if you have a decent investment into any weapon, you'll be able to kill all of them pretty much no problem. And if you run out of ammo, respawning is the best way to deal with them. But if you do need a free-to-play Sharen build with no investment to deal with 99% of situations, this is the setup I personally use. It gives you the tankiness you need even with farming modules on, while having enough skill duration to make sure I can comfortably stealth at least 4 consoles on every single one of these. As a side note, just make sure you're in a private instance whenever you're doing pretty much any of the outposts. Most people are just going to W key into these and kill the mobs whether you tell them to or not. And if your outpost is on cooldown, like I just finished this one, so what I'll do is I'll teleport out and then teleport back in, because you can reset the cooldown just by bouncing between instances. Now, 99% of the time, this works 100% of the time, but a lot of the time, this isn't going to work at all. And I know I just said a lot of the time a couple of times, but what you need to understand is very simple. Everything in this game is RNG. So if you do get lucky, you'll be able to load back in and your instance will still be on cooldown, and that's great. I decided to leave that in because that's just, how it goes a lot of the times, but the best way to do this is to pick 2 of the main things that you want and port between them. That way you have a chance at resetting both of them over and over again. And a lot of the time you do get into chains where you can just spam the outpost down instead of waiting 5 minutes in between each one. I also know a lot of people already have Sharen, but for the ones that don't, I can't stress how important it is to grind her out. We talked about her on day 1 pretty heavily on stream because of how much time she'll save you in the long run. And Enzo is also a character that we talked about that just saves you a ton of mental grief and makes your time feel more meaningful. His vault puzzle thing becomes so much easier that even the purple vaults are a meme to do. And since all the vaults got a triple drop buff, you need to make sure that you're not wasting any of your keys. That hotfix also made it so that vault mats can drop from open world mobs, but vaults will also still be the most efficient way to get all those materials. Vault locations also never move, but they're randomized between white, blue, and purple. They're separated by different keys, so normal mode is analyzers and hard mode is breakers. You also really want to farm vaults in a group of people where everyone is just matching keys and popping them together. So again, joining any community's Discord and looking for a group is the best way to min-max resources and hopefully make some friends to just play the rest of the game with consistently. And when you really get into vault farming, it starts making some of the hardest parts of crafting like catalysts and activators extremely easy, and same thing with a ton of different weapons and characters. And it also nets you a ludicrous amount of Kuiper shards. I've never had to go directly farm for them just because I do so many vaults. So the most efficient way to grind Enzo out so that you can start doing this is to start with the cells. You'll need Amorphous Pattern 28, and you'll get that from the Mirage Stone Outpost and Agna Desert on normal mode. You want to stealth this for 2 separate 20% chances to get it, and after that we'll use them in the Mirage Stone Void Reactor south of this. You'll need 12 Monomer and 3 Polymer Shards on normal mode, and just to get these really fast, go over to the mining site Void mission just above the main teleporter. The next piece you'll need is an organic biogel, and just one tip when you're farming like anything, you can just click on that part of it, but just press escape again and press F. And then when you zoom out, it'll highlight both of the places you need to go, or that way you can like kind of plot a like way you want to farm. So if I really wanted to farm this biogel like as fast as possible, I would just reset between the lumber yard and the law supply depot over and over again, and there's portals right beside both. So if I stealth them, I get the bonus Amorphous, or I'll chance at it at least, and then if I just W key them, I'm just having a chance at the main Amorphous and the biogel every single time I beat them. The stabilizer is also the next part we'll go for, and this is also the best gold EXP Amorphous wave operation that I do personally all the time because I love it. The White Knight Gulch Kuiper Mine Blockade has a chance to drop the pattern 39 on wave 4 and 8, and you can force finish this as fast as you can kill all the mobs. So if people split up, you can blow the entire thing out super fast. So after you do get a few pattern 39s, just go kill normal mode Pyro for a 38% chance to drop Enzo, and if you have 38s, then you can just freely go boss a normal mode boss and try and get a couple extra catalysts. The next thing we'll need to craft the stabilizer is the advanced neural circuits, and these come from another one of the best multi-farms in the entire game. I think this is the right one. Yeah, Fortress Outskirts. Most people already know about this mission, and it's the one people are most familiar with. You activate the 4 different paths, you kill a ton of enemies, and this is the best place to farm brains in the game, and you're going to need a lot of them because you craft a ton of catalysts with these. This spot also has the best open world chances at vault keys because of the number of elites that spawn. The second brain farm is where you'll get MP collector, so I recommend if you're solo or still need this mod to head over to the mountaintops over in White Knight Gulch still and do this border line of truth mission. The zero investment bunny build cooks this super fast, and it still spawns 3 elites, so you'll get a decent amount of brains and eventually MP collector as well, which is a god tier farming mod. The spiral catalyst will be next, and unfortunately the best way to get this thing is running normal biolabs into the boss. It took me a solid 13 runs of this, and I never want to hear anything UG has to say ever again, but once it's done, it's done. Now, the positive ion particles might end up being your gate, but the best farm for these is Command Ground on hard mode and Agna Desert Mirage Stone. This is another circly farm, so just AoEing it down is the way to go. Finally, the main code's best farm is from pattern 35 in the Outpost at White Knight Gulch. It has a 38% chance at the main code, and is just the best way to get it. And if you need the shards, the best spot is up at Shipment Base, but this is a poison reactor that also requires Freyna. After all that, you can craft Enzo. This took me roughly 7 hours to gather every raw material, including patterns, and I was just putting my tinfoil hat on and spinning the stupid pinwheel the entire time. So hours invested will just vary based on the different components, but after you crafted our big boy Enzo, you should at least have a couple of different keys. But if you were getting unlucky, there is a way to make sure you're getting even more drops from every farm that you do, and that's by getting just different drop rate modules. Ideally, you're looking to get consumable drop chance as the main one. This is what affects all the different consumable drops. Everything in the consumable tab is affected by this. You'll also really want to have a sieve search radius increase modifier. This makes your scan massive when you're farming vaults. And I guess I didn't say this, but you do need to scan, and there's a high pitched beep, meaning that you're going in the right direction, and a low pitched beep, meaning that you're going in the wrong direction. You also really just want to build your entire farming set out, because having that bonus gold, Kuiper, and EXP come in like 15 to 20% faster is a massive difference when you're putting in like 100 hours. It's like just an extra 15 to 20 hours worth of materials and EXP, and it just starts adding up insanely fast. Once you do that, that's the best time to start farming for energy activators and catalysts, because you'll be way more efficient, you'll get way more materials, and everything will just come in way faster. I know it's a bit of a setup, but after you do it once, you never have to do it again, and it sets your entire account up for the foreseeable future. So the first thing we'll need for energy activators is low carbon activators. These only come from one place in Kingston at the Fallen Theater Outpost, and you can just run it down and blow everything up without stealthing if you have everything you need from pattern 87 already. The fastest reset for this is the door to the top right, and it just lets you zoom the resets for it. You can also do this on normal mode for a few less per run in pattern 001, which is just a fast catalyst farm off the first boss on normal mode. Now the next thing we need is conductive metallic foils. These come from Vesper vaults. You'll want to be porting into the ruins as the main location. This is the most possible vault locations out of all the Vesper zones, and is super fast to navigate. Your reset swap is going to be here in the Lost Supply Depot Northport, because it's in ping range of 4 different vaults, while the south is in range of 2. You can also get these as a single drop over at the abandoned refinery unit. It's also an amazing multi-level farm for gold, EXP, Kuiper, and vault keys. So between this and the brain farm, farm, you'll probably never have to worry about generating any vault keys as long as you just spend a little bit of time farming. Now, the heat plasma batteries are insanely easy to farm from the Haven because there's 6 elites that all drop at least 7 on the low end, with 17 as the max roll that I've personally seen on the high end. All you have to do is get into this room and do like 6 or 7 of the circles, then just wait until like 30-ish seconds and pop the last one so you can go finish the dungeon. As for the polyatomic ion shards, the only half decent place to get them is the destroyed base mission up in the fortress up at defense line, which is another one of these fabulous circle farms. So just run it down until you get them. Pretty much anytime one of your friends is sitting there and they're like, yo, I need this, just go with them because you're going to need it too. Now, finally, for the main blueprint, you can go 2 ways. One is the dungeon farm. There are a few that are super fast to finish, but I recommend just picking something that you really want to grind out, like a character or a weapon that overlaps with an energy activator. For instance, I really want 5 Afterglow swords, so doing the shelter for pattern 79 until I get enough of them is the best farm for me right now. You can also press restart at the end of the dungeon to save your roll. So like if you roll like 240% with like decent modifiers, you just press restart at the end and it's going to give you that same modifier roll, and you can just keep redoing the hard mode dungeon over and over again. And this is personally what I'm going to keep rotating through until I have all the different characters and weapons maxed out. But we do have a second option, which is farming Outpost, and this is my personal preferred method for like degen hour farming because it is just mindless. And most of the best things come from these outposts, so you usually get to double and triple dip on their patterns. For instance, I was going for Ultimate Bunny and Ultimate Leapic at the same time, so I just picked multiple outposts that bounced between that just dropped everything that I needed for their parts, and those were also all stacked with activators, and basically just ended up getting both sets of things I needed in one day and just had to wait on crafting the second. In general, activator patterns come from odd number patterns, which you have to stealth for. So while you're getting these, you'll passively be getting a ton of even patterns, and those all drop catalysts. So you'll have a ton of options to slam for the blueprint. You'll also have a small chance to get shapers while you're doing outposts to up the chance for the rare stuff. Now, my personal favorite farm that I love doing the most is up in Fortress. I just bounce between these 2 outposts and stack a ton of Amorphous. The one in defense line will take a little bit of extra farming for void shards for its reactor, but there are a bunch of really good multi-void shard farms. The really popular one is with 2 Valbies. You can go down into White Knight Gulch and Moongrave Basin and finish it in like under 30 seconds for a little bit of everything. But the main outpost and converter facility has the easiest reactor to pop in the game. This is where I get the majority of my catalyst and activator blueprints from. It's super easy to stealth kill the one elite as Sharen, even with like terrible gear, and because of the void shard loot cave tied to it in the falling arc, you'll be able to pop these Amorphous as much as you need to. You can finish it insanely fast with your brain off with the free-to-play bunny build I have, and personally I have not found a better way to level weapons in the entire game, to the point that catalyst spamming your weapon and having to re-level it over and over again are just like a complete afterthought. But moving on, we'll go over what you need for catalysts. The brains will come from that main farm in White Knight Gulch that you're already doing, so you won't have to worry about those for the most part. But the mixed energy residue is the main thing we need to do vaults for this. So we'll be back in the desert again and popping into Mirage Stone along the ridge. Vault spawns are never guaranteed to be there, but there is 3 to the northwest of the waypoint and 1 to the southeast, all within scan range of you just loading in. So this is the best possible place to pop in for these on normal and hard mode. We'll also be porting over to the Vermilion Wastes mainly for the loot cave. This has 4 boxes that you should kick every time you go down to grab a vault in there, and you'll be able to ping that vault the second that you load in at the outpost. If you don't hear anything, just walk up past this first mission in front of you and you'll be able to ping range of 2 to 3 more. But if nothing's there, just keep warping back and forth between this and the Mirage Stone and you'll have everything you need fairly quickly. Now, the biogels are just from Muskeg Swamp and the Derelict Covert Outposts. I do recommend stealthing both of these as well, but if you really just need the resources, W keying is fine here. When you go for the Murky Energy, you can choose between the Forgotten Knees and the Unknown Laboratory on either normal or hard mode. If you do go the normal mode route, I don't think the lab is worth doing because you have this like weird long waiting room area here, and this doesn't exist on hard mode at all. And when you go do hard mode, it only takes about 2.5 minutes to get to the elite if you're just resetting for Murky Energy specifically, and the Forgotten Knees takes about 3.5 minutes if you're just going for its elite. But if you're going for Amorphous patterns, both dungeons take about the same time to complete, and the Forgotten Knees last boss is way easier to deal with than the lab's boss, especially if you have like a couple of crazy boss modifiers. Now, there was also reports of people getting raw activator and catalyst drops from wave missions, so that's a thing. I guess I haven't seen it yet, so I personally can't confirm it myself, but just passively from playing the entire game, going for all the different weapons to level 5, getting all the different characters, and just from bossing and doing whatever, you'll pick up quite a few catalyst patterns, and when you get really lucky, you'll hit those activators, and kind of just by playing the game more, you'll get more out of the game. And the one final note is it takes 30 hours to craft an activator and only 8 for a catalyst. So after doing all these farms pretty extensively on and off stream, I do have to say that it doesn't feel that bad to go through everything once you get into a good groove and understand the double dipping and like multi farms. Because if you are just single target farming for like, oh, it's like, oh, I just want gold, then you're going to have to go do this other stuff anyways, which is going to generate all these other resources. And again, that's how I like to farm. I like to do the multi-level stuff because I think it makes the game loop feel way better for me. I'm just going to keep brute forcing them down because it really isn't that bad as long as you enjoy the characters that you're grinding on. And that's like basically my biggest tip that I'm going to put in almost every video is pick a character that you love so you can just grind the game and have the most fun you can. So I hope this helps you all out, and I wish you the best of luck out there.